Hi, this is Patrick Anderson, and Liv is behind the camera, and this is the Mach-E vlog. And we are not in the Mach-E today, we're actually in a Polestar 2 for a quick test drive and comparison. So let's get started. Of course, Polestar 2 has a lot of the same type of tech features as far as lane centering, intelligent cruise control type features. Not going to test those out too much right now because we have a very limited test drive, but it's pretty similar technology, and I expect that to be no issue. Very common on a lot of vehicles now to have that type of technology. One thing that the Mach-E will have that this one will not is the Mach-E is going to have hands-free intelligent cruise control at some point later this year on certain roads. So that is a bonus feature that the Mach-E will have. So already I can tell this feels quite a bit smaller than my Mach-E. It feels more like the WRX that I traded in for the Mach-E. Feels very fast, feels faster than the Mach-E, which makes sense. It has a bit more horsepower, a bit more torque. The range isn't quite up as high as the Mach-E. It has 233 miles of range. I think it has 408 horsepower, and I forget the torque right offhand, but it is more than the Mach-E. I believe 0 to 60 is in the low to mid 4 seconds. Whereas the Mach-E, of course, is the first edition that we have is about 4.8 seconds. So just drove it about a mile so far, and it already feels a bit peppier and feels quite a bit smaller. One of the first things that I noticed when we got in is this huge center console. I do not like this at all. This is, to me, detracts from the airiness of the cabin. I mean, it's nice to have the sky roof up here, but this thing is makes it feel very closed in, if you ask me. It is running Android Automotive, and it's a little bit different. It's not Android Auto, it's Android Automotive, which is different. It means the entire OS is actually running Android, not just a projection of Android onto your screen. The whole system is running Android separate from your phone. There's some positives to that in that you're not using your phone to drive Google Maps and Google Assistant and some of these other apps like Spotify. So you don't have to worry about your phone burning through a lot of battery doing that. Even if you do have charging in the car, it still can burn through your battery running Android Auto. So that's a nice feature. And Ford has signed a deal with Google to bring Android Automotive to all of their cars in Ford and Lincoln, but that's still a few years out to when that transition will happen. But it's neat to see it here. Very familiar apps like Google Maps, and the Google Maps you can also display into the driver console as well. So that's sort of a neat feature. And as the salesperson pointed out, you can have Android Google Maps running in the driver console, while over here this leaves this screen so that, like, if your passenger wants to go through and run whatever apps here, Spotify, I'm assuming like YouTube Music, those type of things, those can run over here.
Oh my goodness. I hope I got that. You threw me back so far. How'd that feel?
It does accelerate very quickly. And one of the things I noticed at the Mach-E is that it does seem like there is like it ramps up the torque. And of course in EVs, already talks about the instant torque. It ramps it up very quickly, but there is like a slight hesitation. And I think that is designed by Ford. You don't, it's probably easier on the components not to just slam it up to 100% torque right away. And the Mach-E is still fast. So I don't think it's like a big deal to me. Like I wouldn't choose this car because it's faster, just like I wouldn't choose like a Model Y performance over the Mach-E. It's like the Mach-E first edition is fast enough for me. The main thing that I think any of the EVs is they have that very quick access to the torque and zipping around in traffic. I think you'll be happy with pretty much any EV.
I do have to say that the Android, what did you call it?
Automotive, not auto.
Android Automotive, not auto, is really nice. It seems beautifully integrated, and I'm kind of bummed that we don't have it in the Mach-E yet, or that we may not get it in our version. This looks really nice. Every aspect of it seems quite well built for the screen and for the interaction that it needs. There is a dial that's present over here in the Polestar 2, which is also reminiscent of the Mach-E. I personally like it. And I don't know, maybe this is controversial, but I think the dial on the Mach-E looks a little cheap. I mean, I don't mind that, but I do like the dial on this. I like that it has sort of the chamfered beveled edges that are sort of like diamond shapes.
But I like that the Mach-E, it's on the screen, is going to, and will have more uses than just the volume. So I think that's going to be where the Mach-E wins out for me.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, and this is simply an aesthetic thing. The seats do have side lateral support, which is quite nice. I don't particularly like the canvas sort of feeling of the seats, though. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I much prefer the quality of the Mach-E seat materials, but I like the side support.
Yeah.
Although, like the negative about side support that I have found in cars over the years is like they feel very comfortable for sporty driving around town, but when you're in a long road trip, it's like this is the only position you can be in because you can't really shift much because it's keeping you in that one position. So, pros and cons to each style of seat.
That's fair. And on that point, there does seem to be quite a lot of adjustability with the seating. There are like 4 points that you can adjust the lumbar. You can go up, down, and I think in and out. So that differs to the Mach-E, which you can only increase the lumbar support or decrease it, which kind of weirded me out because if you are very tall or have a long torso, then your lumbar support is not necessarily going to be in the same place as me. But the lumbar support in the Mach-E does fit me. I am 5'5" with a short torso, so there's that. We're about to go on the highway. Let's see how this is. You made my ears pop.
Great acceleration and pulled right up to 65 miles an hour. Curious to see how the wind noise is. We're not going too far on the freeway, but I do want to hear how the wind noise is. Getting a lot of road noise right now.
Yeah, that's surprising actually. I'm noticing that too.
It's also flashing at me that the speed limit is 45, even though we're on the interstate right now. And the speed limit is definitely 65. Yeah, I know it should read speed limit signs, but it might have read the on-ramp sign.
Let's see if we see a speed limit sign at some point.
Nope, it's still flashing at me that I'm speeding, even though I'm doing under the speed limit. Here's the speed limit sign coming up, so we'll see if it changes then. And this is actually our exit, so I'll get over there so it should be able to really see it.
So there's the speed limit sign, and nope.
Yep, yeah,
Oh, there it
did
changed.
adjust, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So it did recognize the speed limit sign.
And now we see an exit sign that says 45. Let's see if it changes.
No.
No, interesting. I mean, we are in the exit, but for all it knows, we could be in the right lane.
And overall, didn't hear much wind noise, heard quite a bit of road noise, and I think that might be because of the tires and the way the pavement was, but would have to do a lot of comparisons to see overall how the noise is. Otherwise, the interior feels very solid and very high quality, just like the Mach-E. I think both are very solid. I actually prefer the materials in the Mach-E a lot. This has like a bit of a cloth as well, like just like the Mach-E. The Mach-E's is covering a speaker. I don't think that's a speaker here. But I just like the materials, and you know, you can can call me biased or whatever, but I think they're fairly similar, just a preference of mine.
Now, it should be noted that this is just one of the interiors that this vehicle can come in. From my understanding, this can be replaced with a wood or faux wood finish, and there is a vegan leather option. I'm not entirely sure which interior it was sitting in, but there are multiple options that you can select.
And that brings up a good point. This car starts at about $60,000, which is where the Mach-E tops off if you get a first edition. At $60,000, of course, that's where it starts. That's pretty well laid out. There is a performance version that I believe is about $5,000 more. And of course, it is also eligible for the $7,500 tax credit. We just splashed that guy.
Oh,
I really
no.
didn't mean to, but there was not much choice. So this car is also eligible for the $7,500 tax credit, as well as any state tax incentives.
I think it should be noted that this is the street that we've driven down on the Mach-E a couple times, and we pointed out that we were trying to hit bumps. We're currently on Evans, which is an extremely bumpy street, and I don't recall it being quite so bumpy. Like, this was significantly noticeable, don't you think?
I am in the sportier suspension. I'll see if I can change that. So steering feel is standard. No, we're actually, that's only,
we're not in sport.
Yeah, the suspension does not adjust. I think in the sport, or not the sport, but the performance version, you can adjust the suspension, but not in this one. So I would classify it as a bit rougher of a ride.
Yeah, because we drove down the street and we're trying to hit that bump and didn't feel it in the Mach-E, and I noticed that felt quite noticeable.
So the gear shift on this, P, of course, puts it into park, but to go into drive, it's... And then now it's in drive. To put it in reverse, it's... And the mirrors tilt so that you can back up a little bit clearer. And, of course, it has a rear view camera. And I believe it has a 360 camera. That's actually a very far field view to see where the surrounding area is. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I see, because we watched the fast lane, I see what they mean by this being distorted. When it was on my little YouTube screen, I couldn't notice that, but in person you can. It's a little blurry, but I think it wouldn't really be an issue once you are used to driving it.
So you can pick which one you want to see a little bit more of. So.
Oh, that's great. There we can see that lady. Oh, weird. See her feet coming towards the car. That's kind of cool. Well, hey. So this is the Polestar 2. First things first, as I was mentioning earlier, when I got into this car, the first thing I did was bang my knee on there. I feel like that would be a really easy thing to do. It's actually a little bit obtrusive, but perhaps I just kind of sit like a slob a little. But yeah, that seems like a very easy thing to do. In comparison to the Mach-E, one thing that I really do like is that there is a grip here. It's very easy to just lean forward and then give the door a yank. With the Mach-E, I kind of feel like I'm pulling on things that I shouldn't be when I do this, so it's nice to have something to grab. As far as the interior goes, there's a multiple different finishes here. Nothing feels particularly plush to me, but I do think it's interesting how many different finishes they included. And you have the manually adjustable airflow here and on the top as well. The inside of the glove box seems pretty nice and large. I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like this plastic feels a bit cheap. What do you think?
I think so. I think there's a little bit more hard plastic in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, which combined with the shiny black plastic that you have here kind of gives me a little bit of the feeling of like a stereo from the 90s. You know, a boombox, you know? So there's that.
Let's take a look at the storage. Looks to be fairly good. There's some extra storage underneath. You can also flip up this divider. I don't think it's as much space as in the Mach-E, but we can look those numbers up and pop them up on the screen right now. Of course, the front seats fold down. If you want to hold that, I will pop down at least one of them.
And just to point out some interesting things, there is some side storage and baskets there, which is actually really nice. Hello, and that is a ski pass-through as well, just in front of your hands over there that you can pop down and stick something long in. Skis or wooden boards or something. This section here pops out quite easily, but then it is hard and moderately cumbersome if you want to give it a shot.
Yeah, this is one where in the Mach-E, it's just a thing that you can fold up or stick underneath your floor. This one, it's like this big cumbersome thing, and this is one of the things that I mentioned when I first looked at the Mach-E. I'd rather have something that's flimsy that you can stow away than something that has to be left at home if you have something that's big and bulky. So looks nicer, looks a little bit higher quality, but then we'll just get in your way. So again, personal preference, I don't like it. And I think we can close it.
Now notice as it closes, did you hear that sound? It's a little disconcerting to me that it sounds like it isn't closing properly, but it is doing an automatic close feature of its own. I just keep thinking it's not close enough, but I also come from cheaper cars. I do have to say that I find it slightly odd having the charge point on the back of the vehicle. I know some manufacturers do that, but with the Mach-E having it on the front of the vehicle, it makes it so that you can just pull into a charging station and you don't have to reverse in. This, of course, looks like a regular vehicle. It looks like a Volvo, a very traditional car, so it's kind of a little more acceptable, I think, or you know what I mean? So I just got into this car and started setting up the seat for me to drive. The seat has a great amount of adjustability. I love that you can adjust this forwards and backwards, the base of it. There is, as I note here, 4 types of lumbar support that you can change. But I can't actually drive this vehicle because of the center console. So because I drive crisscross, my leg is literally bashing into the console here, and I don't actually feel safe driving. I'm not sure if you can see how much that's pressing into my calf, but I can certainly move this around, but then my prosthesis is even more in the way. So I could take my prosthesis off, but I don't necessarily want to have to do that in order to drive. And also then my residual limb is very sensitive, and if I bash it into this in any way, which I probably would because it would be hanging right here, that's not going to be pleasant at all. So I'm super cramped in here. There's no way that I could drive this. I unfortunately have to sort of fight against my prosthesis to reach the accelerator. And in order to put my heel on the ground, someone previously had asked if it hurt my back to drive cross-legged, and I said that if you adjust the seat fine, then it's not a huge amount of issue. But unfortunately, because I have to tilt so much in this way in order to access the accelerator, this would be extremely painful in a short amount of time. So that's really unfortunate, and I kind of wish this wasn't the case right here, because this really limits the car for anyone who's like me, which I know isn't that much of the population necessarily, but unfortunately we just can't drive this then. So I just got back into the Polestar 2 after trying unsuccessfully to get the seat set so that I could drive it, and immediately bashed my knee again. This center section here is the greatest impediment to this car. Other than that, it's a really lovely vehicle. It feels great. It seems like it drives nicely from watching Patrick drive it, and I think it would have been nice to drive if it hadn't been for the complete impediment of that center console.
So the final verdict for me is that 10 years ago, this might have been my choice. Comparing this to like my WRX, it feels somewhat similar to that as far as it's fast and it's relatively small, lower to the ground. I think I might have chosen this if I were looking to replace my WRX, but I was not. I was looking to switch to something bigger, more of a crossover SUV type, and the Mach-E definitely feels like it suits my needs way more than this does now. We have some issues with this big center console and the lack of storage in the back. So that gives it a thumbs down, but that doesn't mean it should be a thumbs down for everybody. It feels like an excellent car, very fast, pretty solid. Again, I don't think the materials are as nice as the first edition Mach-E, but overall, it feels like a very nice car. If you had to make me choose between this and a Model 3, I like this type of interior better, but I really just don't like this center console being so big. So there are some other things that I really do like. I do like Android Automotive a lot. I like how powerful this car is. Very, very fast, feels very fast. Steering feels very nice and handles very nice. There is also a lot of road noise, as I mentioned. So some good and bad. If I were you, let's try to schedule a test drive and see what you think. So thanks for checking this video out. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you want to see me test drive other vehicles, pop those in the comments as well, and I'll try to get as many of those in as possible. My next scheduled test drive right now is the VW ID4, which I'm looking forward to giving that a spin. So thanks again. Make sure you subscribe before you go, hit the thumbs up, and also hit that bell notification so you know when I post the next video. From Liv, who is behind the camera, and me, I hope you have a great day and your car is fully charged or fully gassed if you're still on an ICE car.